All right, how's everybody doing today? Hotep, hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. So it is Wednesday, August 10th, 2022, and we are live. We have a special Wednesday edition of the African History Network show. So share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. So we got the news on Tuesday that a grand jury in Mississippi would not indict Carolyn Bryant Donham in the murder and kidnapping of Emmett Lewis Till. And if you remember back on our Sunday, July 10th show, when I talked about the arrest warrant that was issued August 29th, 1955, that arrest warrant was found by a search team and members of Emmett Till's family. We talked about this on that July 10th show, and I went through and explained that I did not think that that search warrant was going to be served. And I did not think Carolyn Bryant Donham would actually be indicted. And I went through and explained why. And one of the things that we talked about was the 16-page Department of Justice report, Emmett Till Notice to Close File, the 16-page Department of Justice report that was released by the Department of Justice on December 2021, right around December 7th, 2021, the day they made the December 6th, 2021, the day they made the announcement that they were closing the investigation into Emmett Till's case that they opened because of the allegations made by Professor Timothy Tyson in his 2017 book, The Blood of Emmett Till. So if you've been watching this show, you know we went through and broke all that down. So what we're going to do today, and yes, we want justice for Emmett Till, but as I said, I actually read this 16-page report from the Department of Justice, and this documents their investigation. Having read this report, I said they're not going to indict her because of lack of sufficient evidence, and basically all of the other witnesses are dead except for Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr., who is Emmett Till's cousin from Chicago, and he was with Emmett Till at the store, but he was outside of the store when Emmett Till came out, and he was the last person who's alive to see who was there when Emmett Till was abducted. He was at the house when Emmett Till was abducted as well. So what we're going to do today, we're going to look at the code that came out, look at the information that came out on Tuesday, August 9th, 2022, announcing that a Mississippi grand jury is not going to indict Carolyn Bryant Donham. And then I'm going to go through and we're going to look at another part of the report. Okay, we're going to go through and look at another part of this 16-page report, and I want to focus on pages 5 through 7, and then I'm going to re-air the segment dealing with Emmett Till from our Sunday, July 10th show, where I also went in depth into this 16-page report, and we looked at pages 3 through 5. That was the main focus on July 10th. Okay, so everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Yes, we want justice for Emmett Till. Hopefully, somehow justice will happen. But it's the information from Professor Timothy Tyson's book is not going to help, and there's a whole lot of inconsistencies in the allegations that he made about Carolyn Bryant Donham recanting her testimony as well. And we talked about this on our July 10th show, and on previous shows also. Okay. Also, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, and we'll let you know about online history classes that I teach on the weekends as well. So let's look at this article here from the New York Times that came out Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. Okay. Mississippi grand jury declines to indict woman in Emmett Till murder. Mississippi grand jury declines to indict woman in Mississippi in Emmett Till murder case. Okay. And this is dealing with Carolyn Bryant Donham, who was seen for the first time in 20 years, first time in public in 20 years. There was an article from the Daily Mail that came out August 1st, 2022, and showed pictures of her. So she's in hospice care. She has cancer, and she is blind as well. Okay. All right. So check out this article here also from the Daily Mail as well. We'll show you that article in just a minute. So Carolyn Bryant Donham had accused a 14-year-old boy of whistling at her in 1955. His killing helped galvanize the civil rights movement. His killing helped to galvanize the civil rights movement. All right, so here's a picture of Carolyn Bryant Donham, and second from the right, sitting beside her former husband, Roy Bryant, and J.W. Millam, who was his half-brother. Far left, their trial in Emmett Till's murder in Sumner, Mississippi, 1955. All right. So a grand jury in Mississippi examining the case of Emmett Till has declined to indict the white woman whose accusations prompted the attack, prosecutors said on Tuesday. Now, jurors in LaFleur County in the Mississippi Delta, where Emmett Till had traveled from Chicago in the summer 1955, heard more than 7 hours of testimony from investigators and witnesses with direct knowledge, of the case. Still, prosecutors said the panel did not find sufficient evidence. The panel did not find sufficient evidence to indict Carolyn Bryant Donham on charges of kidnapping or manslaughter. And when you go through and we read the 16-page Department of Justice report dealing with their investigation, I mean, you see why. And I read through it, and it's a shame. We want justice for Emmett Till, but as I said, they're lacking evidence. Okay, they're lacking evidence. All right, let's continue with this, and let me try to increase the size of this a little bit here. Okay, so you all should be able to see this. Okay, hopefully. All right, so after hearing every aspect of the investigation and evidence collected regarding Donham's involvement, returned a no bill to the charges of both kidnapping and manslaughter. They returned a no bill, no indictment, to the charges of kidnapping and manslaughter. The office of W. Dwayne Richardson, the district attorney for the 4th Circuit Court District of Mississippi, said on tape. So it was his office that did the prosecution. All right, now let's continue. So the grand jury's decision had been reported by the Associated Press, and I read the Associated Press. I read their story on this as well. For more than 2 decades, prosecutors and legal experts have indicated that there were dwindling legal avenues for holding Carolyn Bryant Donham or anyone criminally responsible for the abduction, torture, and killing of Emmett Till. Now, investigations were closed because there was an investigation that was launched in 2004. That one was closed. And then we know the one that was launched after the 2017 book came out. That one was just closed in December 2021. Investigations were closed and no indictments or charges had been issued. Witnesses were aging or dying. Miss Donham's husband at the time, Roy Bryant, and his half-brother, J.W. Millam, confessed to the murder, but only after they were acquitted by an all-white jury. Both men are dead. Okay, so they admitted to the journalist William Bradford Huey in Look magazine that they killed Emmett Till. They were paid $4,000 for the interview in Look magazine. And this was after they were acquitted of murdering Emmett Till. And will y'all please stop bringing Bill Cosby up in this? Bill Cosby don't have a goddamn thing to do with this. Oh my God. People, please use Google. Bill Cosby case don't have a damn thing to do with this. Bill Cosby's accuser, first of all, the incident with Bill Cosby with Andrea Constand took place in 2004, not 1955. And Bill Cosby's conviction was overturned by the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court because based upon the agreement that Bill Cosby had with the outgoing district attorney, the outgoing district attorney said there was not enough evidence to prosecute Bill Cosby criminally. And in exchange, Bill Cosby agreed to sit down for a deposition in a civil lawsuit. Bill Cosby don't have a damn thing to do with this case. You have to study the merits of this case. Okay. I saw somebody post some nonsense on Facebook about this, and I had to deal with the facts. Okay. Unfortunately, use Google, please. Read the article from the Associated Press. And this deals with Andrea Constand and Bill Cosby. And Bill Cosby's conviction was overturned. So that's not I don't think that's the example that you actually want to use. Find another example. This one right here from the Associated Press. Let's see here. This one from we'll pull this up because it's important for us to understand the merits of these cases as opposed to just throwing just simple Simon ass nonsense out here. Okay, Bill Cosby, Andrea Constand. Bill Cosby was released from prison. And we look at the Associated Press story on this. Okay, this one right here. Released from prison June of 2021. Associated Press, Bill Cosby freed from prison, his sex conviction overturned, June 30th, 2021. People, please read. Pennsylvania's highest court threw out Bill Cosby's sexual assault conviction and released him from prison Wednesday in a stunning reversal of fortune for the comedian once known as America's Dad. Okay, now when you look at this, the incident with Andrea Constand that put Bill Cosby in prison happened in 2004, not 1964, 1974, 1984, 1994. It happened in 2004, and Andrea Constand was still alive. She testified against Bill Cosby. People, please read this and stop bringing up Bill Cosby's name in this. Bill Cosby don't have nothing to do with this case. This is why we have to study the merits of this case, not a bunch of other stuff that's a distraction. Once again, Bill Cosby's conviction was overturned. I don't think that's he was set free. I don't think that's the example that you want to use. All right, now, Donham's, okay, so both men are dead. And they admitted in a interview, I think it was January 1956, Look magazine, with William Bradford Huey. They admitted to killing Emmett Till. Is where that's talked about on page 4 of the report from the Department of Justice. So even so, new details kept emerging. Back to the article from New York Times. Even so, new details kept emerging. The latest came this summer as relatives of Emmett Till and researchers looking into his murder unearthed an arrest warrant for Carolyn Bryant Donham issued by the LaFleur County Sheriff and dated August 29th, 1955. And it was never served. The sheriff at the time said that he didn't want to bother Carolyn Bryant Donham because she had 2 young children. So the arrest warrant was never served. And a lot of people, we just found out that the arrest warrant existed, like it was either last month or the month before that, when they found it, right around that time. That's when we found out the arrest warrant existed. We didn't even that there was an arrest warrant that was for her. Okay, now they have some other articles here from the New York Times dealing with Emmett Till. So the most recent turn in the case on Tuesday, August 9th, could very well be one of the last options for prosecution. Quote, the murder of Emmett Till remains an unforgettable tragedy in this country, prosecutors said in a statement, and the thoughts and prayers of this nation continue to be with the family of Emmett Till. All right, now, the Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr., who's a cousin of Emmett Till, and he's the only surviving witness besides Carolyn Bryant Donham. He was a cousin of Emmett Till and the best friend of Emmett Till. He's the last living witness to the abduction. He described the development as, quote, unfortunate but predictable news. Okay. Still, he said he believed that prosecutors were living up to their assurances that they would leave no stone unturned in the fight for justice for my cousin, end quote. They would leave no stone unturned in the fight for justice for my cousin. Quote, he said, he went on, the prosecutors tried their best as we appreciate his efforts, but he alone cannot, referring to the prosecutor, he alone cannot undo hundreds of years of anti-Black systems that guaranteed those who killed Emmett Till would go unpunished to this day. Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr. said in a statement on Tuesday. Now, the fact remains that the people who abducted, tortured, and murdered Emmett did so in plain sight. Okay, did so in plain sight. And our American justice system was and continues to be set up in such a way that they could not be brought to justice for their heinous crimes. Now, Carolyn Bryant Donham is 88 years old. Some sources say 87. She cannot be immediately reached for comment. I don't think she's going to comment on this at all. All right. There was an article from the Daily Mail.co.uk from August 1st that showed pictures of her in public. And these are the first pictures of her in public in about 20 years or so. Exclusive white woman, 88, who triggered reduce the size of this here. Triggered the lynching of Emmett Till is seen for the first time in 20 years as she lives out her final days cancer-stricken and in hospice care at her Kentucky home. So we saw pictures of her for the first time in 20 years, or in about 20 years. Pictures of her for the first time at in hospice care in Kentucky. There she is with an oxygen tank in the oxygen tube around her nose. All right. So you can check this article here from the Daily Mail. Exclusive white woman 88 who triggered the lynching at Emmett Till is seen for the first time in 20 years. All right, now let's go back to the piece from the New York Times. So we found out about an unpublished memoir in July of 2022, right around July 15th. There's an article from the Associated Press, July 15, 2022, Mississippi Attorney General, no prosecution plan at Emmett Till lynching. And then right around that same time, we found out about the memoir. There's an article, Emmett Till accuser in memoir denies wanting teen killed. There's an article from the Associated Press dealing with that also. But if we look at this here in an unpublished memoir that surfaced last month, July 2022, Carolyn Bryant Donham by her earlier description of events and said she tried to discourage her husband from harming Emmett Till. Okay. Now her family doesn't believe, his family does not believe that as well. They put out statements refuting that, her statements in her unpublished memoir. She said in the unpublished memoir, she said, he came in our store and put his hands on me with no provocation. She wrote, do I think he should have been killed for doing that? Absolutely, unequivocally, no. The Emmett Till family said the account of Carolyn Bryant Donham in her unpublished memoir was rife with inaccuracies, okay, full of nonsense. There have been thousands of lynchings, many in the American South. We know that Mississippi was the state with the most number of lynchings from 1882 to 1968. Mississippi had 581 lynchings. They had the most number of lynchings from 1882 to 1968. This information at the NAACP's official website on lynchings. Just search for American lynchings. They have information there that deals with statistics on lynchings. But the gruesome details of Emmett Till's killing reverberated across the country. He was tortured and shot, and a 75-pound fan, a cotton gin fan, was tied around his neck, and he was thrown into the Tallahatchie River. When he was found, his skull had been crushed and his face disfigured. His mother, Mamie Till Mobley, allowed photographs of his mangled corpse to be published by magazine, and we know she insisted on having an open casket funeral. So what was done to her son, and the killing of Emmett Till, his funeral, the trial helped to galvanize the modern day civil rights movement. So much so that Rosa Parks talked about how when she was on that Cleveland Avenue bus on December 1st, 1955, she was thinking about Emmett Till. Okay. And she had just gone to a meeting where T.R.M. Howard spoke, Dr. T.R.M. Howard. It was a meeting dealing with Emmett Till. She attended this meeting November 27th, 1955, just before Emmett Till was murdered. Okay. So the class I teach on Sundays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968, we deal with a lot of this information in that 10-week online class. So we have information on that at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and then also here in the thread of the broadcast. This is an article from the Zen Education Project, November 27th, 1955. Rosa Parks attends meeting about Emmett Till. And this deals with that meeting where Dr. T.R.M. Howard spoke. On November 27th, 1955, Rosa Parks, who was a secretary for the NAACP, but she also investigated sexual assaults that African Americans were accused of, like African American men were accused of sexual assaults, and she investigated sexual assaults on African American women as well. She investigated that on behalf of the NAACP. One of the most famous cases was the gang rape of Reese Taylor. Rosa Parks investigated that gang rape also. Now, on November 27, 1955, Rosa Parks attended a packed mass meeting at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church to hear Dr. T.R.M. Howard speak. Howard was the lead organizer in the Emmett Till case. And 4 days later, when bus driver James Blake told Rosa Parks to give up her seat, quote, pushed as far as she could be pushed, end quote, she refused. And she talks about, when you read this excerpt from Rosa Parks' biography, she talks about thinking about Emmett Till while she was sitting on that bus. Rosa Parks was sickened, angry, depressed, horrified. She had been fighting for years to get justice for Black people under the law. Reese Taylor, Gertrude Perkins, who had been raped, Viola White, Claudette Colvin, who had been arrested for resisting on the bus. And this was about 9 months before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. We know that Claudette Colvin was part of a landmark Supreme Court case filed February 1st, 1956 by attorney Fred Gray. Attorney Fred Gray just received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and attorney Fred Gray filed this lawsuit on, it was the lawsuit known as Browder versus Gale, the lawsuit of Browder versus Gale. And the plaintiffs in the lawsuit were Aurelia S. Browder, Claudette Colvin, Mary Louise Smith, and Susie McDonald. These were 4 African-American women who refused to give up their seats on buses in Montgomery, Alabama. Okay. And they were the plaintiffs in this lawsuit, and they sued Mayor William A. Gale, Gayle. He was one of the defendants. They sued the mayor of Montgomery, Alabama. They sued the police chief. They sued the Montgomery Bus Lines, Inc., which was the bus company, and other people, members of the city council, things like this. The lawsuit goes all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and is going to be, and after appeals, is going to be December 20th, 1956, that Dr. King calls off the bus boycott after the U.S. Supreme Court rules that it's unconstitutional and illegal for segregation to take place on the buses in Montgomery, Alabama. It's going to be this lawsuit, the lawsuit of Browder versus Gale, filed February 1st, 1956, and have 4 African-American women as the plaintiffs. This is what's going to end segregation on the buses in Montgomery, Alabama. It wasn't the bus boycott. It's the lawsuit of Browder versus Gale. Okay, so Reese Taylor, Gertrude Perkins, who they both been raped. Viola White and Claudette Colvin, who had been arrested for resisting on the bus. Rosa Parks sought protection for Black people, and particularly African-American men, from false charges, like the Scottsboro boys and 16-year-old Jeremiah Reeves, who a young Black minister that Raymond Parks knew had been killed for appearing to make an advance at a white woman, as had their neighbor Hilliard Brooks for resisting on the bus. Rosa Parks was discouraged. Most of these cases just got swept underneath the rug. With Emmett Till, people had brought enough attention, an incredible amount of attention, so there had actually been a trial. And yet still, Emmett Till's killers were acquitted. These men who had killed Emmett Till went free. Okay, now here is a picture. You see Willie Nash Carthen, Walter Billingsley, Dr. T.R.M. Howard here in the center with the bow tie and the glasses. That's Mamie Till Mobley on his right. Okay, Emmett Till's mother. This is U.S. Representative Charles Diggs from Detroit. Okay, U.S. House of Representative Charles Diggs on Dr. T.R.M. Howard's left, and also Mandy Bradley. Okay, so this is a picture here from the University of Memphis Library. All right, it goes on to say, many years later, Emmett Till told, many years later, Rosa Parks told Emmett Till's mother that she had thought of Emmett Till at this moment when she was on the bus and she refused to give up her seat. She had thought of Emmett Till at this moment. In key ways, then, the Montgomery bus boycott was not just a reaction to bus segregation, but also to this pattern of injustice in the criminal justice system and Rosa Parks' determination to take a stand against it. Rosa Parks understood that it was not just about this lynching or this acquittal, but about a structure that allowed and protected discrimination, segregation, the deferential treatment of Black people under law. And you understand, segregation was written into the Alabama State Constitution also of 1901, the Alabama State Constitution of 1901. The Montgomery bus boycott was not about wanting to sit on the bus with white people. That's not what it was about. They were focused on breaking the back of segregation, first in Montgomery, Alabama, secondly in the state of Alabama. They wanted first-class citizenship. And the violence that went along with, because there was violence that went along with enforcing segregation laws. So when they're talking about breaking the back of segregation, this is not about sitting at the front of a bus with white people. And then some people say, oh, well, they should have just bought the bus company. They had a black cab company there. And the black cab company was still subject to harassment by white police officers. Their cab licenses came from the white city government. Okay. And they're still governed by laws from the racist state government under the Alabama State Constitution of 1901. So a lot of times people romanticize segregation and think, oh, if they just owned the bus company, everything would have been all right. No. Read this article here from Forbes.com. It was an article I was looking at a couple of days ago. This deals with, and I've written an article dealing with the Montgomery bus boycott as well. And when I do my lectures dealing with the revolutionary Dr. King, we talk about this there as well in the lectures. Read this article here from Forbes.com, how cars made the Montgomery bus boycott, And this is I was looking at this piece a couple of days ago because I read about it before. Also read Dr. King's first book. I read his first and his last book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? But his first book is called Strive Toward Freedom. Dr. King wrote 5 books. His first book is called Stride Toward Freedom, and it's about the Montgomery bus boycott. It came out in 1958. That's the book that he was doing a book signing of when he was stabbed by Azola Ware Curry, who was a mentally deranged African-American woman, and she stabbed Dr. King in the chest with a letter opener. Okay, he was doing a book signing for that book in 1958 when he was stabbed in the chest. He almost died, actually. By the way, he almost died. If he had sneezed, he would have died because of where it was in proximity to his heart. Read this article here from Forbes.com. Let me pull this up. Let's get past the ads. Get past them trying to get me to get another subscription. This article here, how cars saved the Montgomery bus boycott. How cars saved the Montgomery bus boycott. This is from December 4th, 2015. And this is, man, they got so many pop-ups. This is from Forbes.com, December 4th, 2015. Very briefly here, it talks about how, and I want to blow this up here so people can see it. We go to the second page. Let's go. Okay, so they show the bus, National City Line bus number 2857, on which Rosa Parks was riding. In Montgomery, Alabama, for instance, the bus system was nominally private, but subject to city racial exclusion laws. The cab company was also subject to city racial exclusion laws as well. They're governed by So you can own the cab company, but you're still governed by the ordinances that are made by the white city government, or any state laws that are made by the state government. Passenger rail segregation was fought by private rail companies, which found multi-class service costly, as Jonathan Bean, a business historian at Southern Illinois University, has documented. Yet for many transit firms, government-granted monopoly status was too enticing to resist. Okay, now the Montgomery bus boycott lasted 381 days, demonstrated growing resistance to segregation. It did not end segregated buses in Montgomery right away. That requires success in federal courts, as I just explained, but it kept the issue alive and gave time for both lawsuits to work their way through the court and civil rights activists to take their message to the American people at large. Okay, now I'm going to skip over some of this for the sake of time. For activists in Montgomery, maintained boycott posed a challenge: how to secure needed mobility without riding buses. Walking remained an option, but not for the elderly and infirm and people living in remote locations. Taxi services were more expensive, regulated, and subject to police harassment. And buying a car remained outside many Black people's budgets, but helping friends get to work or to the store remained legal. Even in Montgomery, enough African Americans owned private automobiles to ensure that people's vital transportation needs were met. Neighbors organized carpools and shared phone to address unanticipated needs, such as having to take someone to the hospital. All these complex coordination tasks were achieved over the year plus boycott, while the cost to the city steadily mounted. All right, now, and they got the idea of the carpool system. There was a 300 car dispatch system. They got that idea from the Reverend T.J. Jemison. And the Reverend T.J. Jemison was, he was the one that led the Baton Rouge, Louisiana bus boycott in 1953. And that bus boycott lasted for 8 days. And that bus boycott served as a template for the Montgomery bus boycott. So Dr. King and E.D. Nixon and others were calling the Reverend T.J. Jemison to get advice from him on how to navigate, how to structure their bus boycott. All right, so back to the article from the New York Times. Okay, so we know Emmett Till's mother allowed photographs. In 2007, a grand jury in LaFleur County had already decided once before. A grand jury in LaFleur County had already decided once before in 2007 not to indict Carolyn Bryant Donham. Okay, this is the same county. That after federal officials had launched an investigation in 2004, and his family and others maintained that other people had been involved in the lynching. Investigators exhumed Emmett Till's body. They also discovered a long lost trial transcript, and produced an 8,000-page report handed over to local prosecutors. Now, a Justice Department investigation was reopened after historian Professor Timothy B. Tyson, a Duke University professor, claimed in a 2017 book called The Blood of Emmett Till. He claimed that Carolyn Bryant Donham had recanted the most salacious parts of her account, including claims made during the earlier murder trial that Emmett Till had grabbed her and made sexually crude remarks. Quote, "That part is not true," he quoted her as saying. the recantation was not included in the portions of his conversation with her that had been recorded. He did 2 interviews with Carolyn Bryant Donham in 2008 and made audio recordings of both of them. The recantation that he claims was not in the audio recordings, and it was not in the 2 transcripts of the audio recordings either. The 16-page report from the Department of Justice lays this out. So we're going to get to that in just a second. And we're going to focus on pages 5 through 7 or 5 through 8 of that, because I'm going to look at a different portion than I did on our Sunday, July 10th show. So once again, at the end of this broadcast, we're going to re-air that excerpt from our Sunday, July 10th show, the African History Network show, where I went deep into this 16-page report from the Department of Justice as well. So the recantation was not included in the portions of Professor Timothy Tyson's conversation with Carolyn Bryant Donham in 2008. The professor said he was relying on his notes. He said he was relying on his notes. Now, in December of 2021, and we talked about it here on the African History Network show and on Roland Martin Unfiltered as well, when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered. In December of 2021, federal officials said that the inquiry had been closed, that they launched, the second one that they launched, had been closed, and that prosecutors could not pursue perjury charges, citing the statute of limitations and Carolyn Bryant Donham's denial of ever having changed her story. So she said she did not recant her testimony. Her daughter-in-law was there with her during the 2 interviews. Her daughter-in-law said she never recanted her testimony. Professor Timothy Tyson could not produce evidence that she recanted her testimony. So when you go through and read this 16-page report, you'll see why the Department of Justice closed their investigation in December 2017 and said that they could not bring any charges. Okay. So it helps to it helps to actually read this before you start posting Bobby Pittman. It helps to actually read the report from the Department of Justice. There's a lack of evidence. Okay. So people can make the argument, oh, well, it's Mississippi. Read the report from the Department of Justice. I told you this in December 2021, charges were not going to be brought. And we went through and broke it down because I actually read the report. All right, let's continue. So if we look at this here, and this is at justice.gov, the Department of Justice website. I encourage everybody, including Bobby, to read it. I would encourage Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Mike to read it. Emmett Till notice to close file. And justice.gov is the U.S. Department of Justice website. They have a wealth of information there. So I'm at their website every week, at their website quite frequently. So I encourage people to read this information. All right, now, so if we look at this here, this is the 16-page report, and I printed it out and went through and read it. This is from December 6, 2021. They also did a press conference that day to announce that they were closing the investigation and why they were closing the investigation. So it's important for people to read this information. Stop bringing up Simple Simon ass nonsense like they prosecuted Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby, as we showed you the article from the Associated Press, his conviction was overturned by the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court. Plus, that incident that Bill Cosby was convicted on took place in 2004, not 1955. Okay, I want to focus on, for the sake of time, we're going to focus on section, we're going to go to page 3. Let me see now. Let's look. I want to go to page 4. Page 4, section C, the federal investigation. So let me scroll down to this. You can read the full 16 pages yourself. It's a lot of history. It gives you a wealth of knowledge. it clears up a whole lot of misinformation floating around in social media and just people just running their mouths. But I want to start here. This is page 4 toward the top of the page. And also if we go back here to page 3 and top of page 4, Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam were acquitted of the murder by an all-white jury, which had not heard Carolyn Bryant Donham's proffered testimony. Shortly thereafter, a local grand jury considered kidnapping charges against the two men, but the grand jury did not return an indictment. The grand jury did not return an indictment. To date, no other charges. Let's blow this up some more. To date, no other charges. Let's see. Lost my place here. A few days. Okay, we're on section C. Okay, right here. Shortly thereafter, a grand jury considered kidnapping charges against the two men, but the grand jury did not return an indictment on kidnapping charges after they were acquitted on the murder charges. To date, no other charges have ever been filed against Roy Bryant, J.W. Millam, or any other person in connection with Emmett Till's abduction and murder. Following their acquittals, both Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam confessed to kidnapping and murdering Emmett Till to journalist William Bradford Huey, who published their account in Look magazine in January 1956. This is the name of the magazine, Look magazine, like Life magazine. It was called Look magazine. If you watch Eyes on the Prize, in the first installment of Eyes on the Prize, it opens up with the murder of Emmett Till. And they actually interview William Bradford Huey in Eyes on the Prize. Okay. Now, J.W. Millam was quoted as saying, when the N-word gets close to mentioning sex with a white woman, he's tired of living. He's tired of living. I'm likely to kill him. This is what J.W. Millam said in the interview. J.W. Millam died in 1980. William Bradford Huey, the journalist that interviewed both men, he died in 1986. Roy Bryant, Carolyn Bryant Donham's husband, died in 1994. All right. So it lays out the 2004 federal investigation that we talked about in the article from the New York Times, the article that came out August 10th from the New York Times. Mississippi grand jury declines to indict woman in Emmett Till murder case. So the FBI, and we'll just look at part of this briefly. You can, this is on page 4, the 16-page report, section C, the 2004 federal investigation. You can read all this in its entirety. The FBI opened the case as a federal civil rights investigation in 2004 upon the request of several interested parties and as part of an agreement between the Department of Justice and the Mississippi District Attorney's Office, 4th District. The Mississippi District Attorney's Office, 4th District. Although the department determined there was no basis for a federal prosecution at the time, the federal investigation was designed to assist local Mississippi law enforcement officials in determining whether others besides Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam were involved in Emmett Till's murder. Okay. It was designed to determine whether others besides Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam were involved in Emmett Till's murder. Under the terms of the agreement, if the federal investigation uncovered evidence that any living person was involved in the abduction and murder, the department would assist the state's efforts to hold them criminally responsible. Over the next 2 years, the FBI conducted an extensive investigation that included obtaining and reviewing historical records, identifying and interviewing surviving witnesses, conducting forensic analysis, and exhuming and examining the remains of Emmett Till. The Department of Justice shared its findings available here. They have the links, part 1 and 2, with the Mississippi District Attorney's Office, 4th District. Okay. Of note, the department found that in addition to Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam, the two men that had been indicted at the time of the offense and who later admitted to a journalist that they killed Emmett Till, there had likely been other participants in Emmett Till's abduction and murder. This is what they found in this investigation. Of note, the department found that in addition to Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam, there had likely been other participants in Emmett Till's abduction and murder. The findings contradicted several aspects of the account that Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam had given to journalist William Bradford Huey in that January 1956 interview in Look magazine following their acquittal, an account which had for years shaped the narrative of the events surrounding Emmett Till's death. The state of Mississippi pursued several leads from the referral, including investigating what role, if any, the name is redacted, had in Emmett Till's abduction and murder. The district attorney's office presented criminal charges against this person to a state grand jury in February 2007. The grand jury, however, did not issue an indictment. The Civil Rights Division closed its investigation into the matter in 2007 after concluding that no one could be federally prosecuted based on the evidence available at the time. Now, as I said this in our February 10th, in our July 10th, 2022 show, and in previous shows where we talked about this. We talked about this case. It's not, as Denzel Washington told Ethan Hawke in the movie Training Day, it's not what you believe is what you can prove. It's not what you believe is what you can prove. When the feds go to court, they have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of 12 based upon the evidence that a person is guilty of the charges. And they have to be able to meet the element of each one of those charges as well. They have to meet the elements of each one of those charges as well, based upon the evidence. Keep in mind, the defendant is going to have a defense team with them as well that's going to cross-examine their witnesses, challenge the evidence, all of that. They're not going into court by themselves. So, yes, we want justice for Emmett Till. Definitely want justice for Emmett Till, but they're going to need more evidence to get it. When you read the 16-page report from the Department of Justice, and we're going through this report right now, we're on page 4. I'm not going through the whole 16 pages. I don't have time to do that here, but you can read it on your own. You'll see why they're not bringing charges. Okay, so as part of this investigation, the FBI interviewed Carolyn Bryant Donham. I think it's referring to Carolyn Bryant Donham several times between 2004 and 2006. The focus of these interviews was to identify whether others, including herself, participated in the events leading up to Emmett Till's death. Some questions, however, centered on what happened between her and Emmett Till inside the store. In these interviews, Carolyn Bryant Donham relayed, consistent with her sworn testimony, that Emmett Till grabbed her hand and waist and made suggestive comments to her. Okay, now his family refutes this. Okay, so just understand. But this is what she told the FBI investigators in the 2004 investigation. This is what she told the FBI investigators. She explained that she did not intend to tell, I believe she's referring to her husband, Roy Bryant. She explained that she did not intend to tell Roy Bryant what had happened inside the store, and only provided him a detailed account of what happened after he claimed to have learned of the encounter from someone else and confronted her about it a few days later. This account, according to, I think they're referring to Carolyn Bryant, included Emmett Till having made verbal and physical advances toward her. So this would explain why there was a delay of a few days in if Roy Bryant was the one who confronted her about what happened because he heard about it from somebody else. This was explained why it was the incident took place August 25th, 1955, but they show up at Mose Wright's house, the house where Emmett Till is staying, August 29th, 1955. This explains why there was a delay, why it wasn't that same day or the next morning or something like that. This part right here is extremely important. Page 4, section D. Timothy Tyson's claim that Carolyn Bryant Donham recanted her testimony. Okay. No investigative steps were taken by the federal or state government in the next decade. Then shortly before the publication, now this is critical right here. Then shortly before the publication of his book, The Blood of Emmett Till, in 2017, Professor Timothy Tyson revealed to several media outlets that Carolyn Bryant Donham had, during an interview with him nearly a decade earlier, recanted the account that she had provided under oath during a hearing at Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam's trial in the murder of Emmett Till. Professor Timothy Tyson's account suggested that Carolyn Bryant Donham lied in court and lied during the FBI's 2004 investigation. Okay. Now, he said that so when you go through the Department of Justice lays out the investigation. That's section 4. We're going to come to that here in just a second. That's section 4, and they talk about why they opened this 2017 case. When the news came out in 2017 that Professor Timothy Tyson made these claims that he interviewed Carolyn Bryant Donham twice in 2008 and had audio recordings of the interview. And he claimed that she recanted her testimony, recanted portions of her testimony, not the entire testimony. We recanted portions of her testimony from the 1955 case. The first question I asked is, why'd you wait 9 years to say something about it? Because he said he did the interviews in 2008, but he didn't say anything about her recanting her testimony to 2017, about a month before his book came out, The Blood of Emmett Till. So the first question I asked is, if you have smoking gun evidence, if she started spilling the beans, as you put it, and was picked up by the news media, why'd you wait 9 years to say something about it? Why didn't you go to the authorities with this recantation? Now, he said, and it's in the report from the Department of Justice, he said that he didn't go to the authorities because he thought that the investigation that was opened in 2004 was closed. Yeah, but they could launch a new investigation based upon new evidence. You're a history professor and you don't know this? They can launch new investigation based upon new evidence. This is the same question I asked in 2017. We talked about this story in the revelation in the excerpts from The Blood of Emmett Till. We talked about this when the story broke in 2017. And I read through all the news articles talking about this. I read through his statements over and over again. And I was still really looking for the smoking gun evidence. Where is it? And the same question I asked in 2017 is the same question I asked in 2022. If you had smoking gun evidence that Carolyn Bryant Donham recanted her testimony, why'd you wait 9 years to say something about it? Why didn't you go to the authorities then? Because there were more witnesses alive in 2008. Let's continue. So Specifically, Professor Timothy Tyson stated that Carolyn Bryant Donham admitted that her representation that Emmett Till had made verbal and physical advances toward her in the store was not true. This is what he said in his book. Okay. In the book, which was published the following month. So he's promoting the book. He makes these statements a month before the book comes out. Okay. In the book, which was published the following month, Professor Timothy Tyson wrote that Carolyn Bryant Donham said, quote, I have thought about everything about Emmett Till, the killing and the trial, telling who did what to who. And then murmured, okay, he said, and then she murmured, quote, they're all dead now anyway, unquote. He wrote that while trying hard to distinguish fact from remembrance, Carolyn Bryant Donham revealed a story different from what he thought he knew about the incident. Specifically, he represented that Carolyn Bryant Donham handed him a transcript of her sworn testimony and claimed, quote, that part's not true, end quote. He then wrote, if that part's not true, I asked what did happen that evening decades earlier. She said, I want to tell you, honestly, I just don't remember. It was 50 years ago. You tell these stories for so long that they seem true, but that part is not true. Nothing that boy did could ever justify what happened to him. Okay, one, we know that. Two, this is Professor Timothy Tyson's account of what he said that Carolyn Bryant Donham said. Now, Carolyn Bryant Donham maintained she never recanted any of her testimony. She told investigators this in 2004. She told investigators that in 2017. She stuck to her testimony in 2004. 2017, she said she did not recant her testimony. Now, in the book, The Blood of Emmett Till, Professor Timothy Tyson identified a September 8th, 2008 interview with Carolyn Bryant Donham and accompanying handwritten notes by the author and his sources for these and other statements of Carolyn Bryant Donham's included throughout his book. Professor Timothy Tyson relied upon a draft memoir Carolyn Bryant Donham had written but had not published. Okay, he relied upon the draft memoir. So we found out about the draft memoir last month. Okay, we found out about the draft memoir, and the draft memoir is called I Am More Than a Wolf Whistle. I Am More Than a Wolf Whistle. There's an article here from the Associated Press dealing with the draft memoir. You can read it. In the draft memoir, she denied wanting to see Emmett Till killed. She said she tried to protect Emmett Till. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think it's this one here. It's from the Associated Press. Okay, we can look at this one here from ABC News. Okay, yeah, I already have it pulled up here. We'll look at this one from ABC News because they picked up this article from the Associated Press. So you can read this one here. How's everybody doing? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like if you like this broadcast. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. You're not going to get this type of information from a lot of other places. Okay, I didn't want to close that out. So this article came out July 14th, 2022. This is from the Associated Press. Okay, read this one. ABC News picked this up. Emmett Till accuser in memoir denies wanting teen killed. Emmett Till accuser in memoir denies wanting Emmett Till killed. The white woman who was at the center of the 1955 lynching of Emmett Till denies wanting him killed. Okay. Once again, Emmett Till's family disputes Carolyn Bryant Donham's account and that she tried to protect Emmett Till and all this stuff. They dispute that. Okay. A cousin of Emmett Till who leads the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation, Deborah Watts, said the memoir is new evidence that shows Carolyn Bryant Donham's involvement in the case and is particularly important when combined with the arrest warrant. I truly believe these developments cannot be ignored by the authorities in Mississippi, she said. In the memoir, Carolyn Bryant Donham says she attempted to help Emmett Till once he had been located by her husband and brother-in-law, J.W. Millam, brought to her in the middle of the night for identification. She said, quote, I did not wish Emmett any harm and could not stop harm from coming to him since I didn't know what was planned for him. Carolyn Bryant Donham says in the manuscript compiled by her daughter-in-law, quote, I tried to protect him by telling Roy that he's not the one, that's not him, please take him home. End quote. She claimed this in the manuscript that Emmett Till, who had been dragged from a family home at gunpoint in the middle of the night, spoke up and identified himself. This is what she claims in the unpublished memoir. Okay. So Emmett Till's family disputes this and they're saying that's not her accounting of this is not true. All right. Okay. So read the rest of this here. Emmett Till accuser in memoir denies wanting teen killed. So read that article. Some of that just didn't make sense whatsoever. Yeah, okay. All right, now I want to go back to the report from the Department of Justice. Okay, section 4, current FBI investigation. This is page 5. Current FBI investigation. Professor Timothy Tyson's claim of Carolyn Bryant Donham's recantation understandably caused outrage in Mississippi and around the country. And it was widely reported by numerous media outlets, by numerous news outlets in both print and television media, this recantation or alleged recantation. Interested parties questioned whether, having recanted her prior statement, Carolyn Bryant Donham could be punished for her previous lies. Now, the statute of limitations on perjury in trials is like 5 to 7 years. So, no, not perjury. She can't be brought up on perjury charges from the trial. But if she lied to investigators in the 2017 investigation or the 2004 investigation, the statute of limitations for the 2004 investigation ran out. But if she lied to investigators during that 2004 investigation, okay, and they could prove she was lying, they could have brought her up on perjury charges. But the 2004 investigation, I'm saying the 2017 investigation, when you go through and read it, she maintained that she did not recant her testimony. Now, if confirmed, a recantation of Carolyn Bryant Donham's account of what happened inside the store would raise questions about the previous federal and state decisions to decline prosecution. The department's previous conclusion about what role, if any, Carolyn Bryant Donham had in Emmett Till's abduction and murder, and whether any other person previously identified was complicit in the underlying crimes. And of course, a recantation would directly contradict both her testimony and the state proceedings in 1955 and the statement she provided to the FBI during the previous investigation. Okay, the current investigation was the one that closed in December 2021. The current investigation was designed to identify evidence corroborating Professor Timothy Tyson's claim that Carolyn Bryant Donham recanted her testimony, recanted her 1955 testimony, and whether there was additional evidence, identifying one, previously unknown information of Carolyn Bryant Donham having been complicit in Emmett Till's abduction and murder. Okay, that's number one. This is what they're looking for, additional evidence to prove. Two, any previously unknown living subject. And three, a basis to support any other federal or state charges. Okay, so one, they're looking for previously unknown information of Carolyn Bryant Donham having been complicit in Emmett Till's abduction or murder. They're looking for evidence of this. Two, they're looking for any previously unknown living subject. And three, they were looking for a basis to support any other federal or state charges. In re-examining these issues, the FBI interviewed Carolyn Bryant Donham, Professor Timothy Tyson, and persons close to or associated with them. In addition, the men also re-interviewed that would have been Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr., Emmett Till's cousin from Chicago, who was with Emmett Till at the store. He was outside of the store when Emmett Till comes out, and he was at the house when Emmett Till was abducted, Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr. In addition, the government also re-interviewed Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr., the last surviving member of the group of young men who accompanied Emmett Till to the grocery and meat market, and who was present when Emmett Till was abducted by his relatives at home, abducted from his relatives' home. Now, there is a interview that is at Rutgers University's website with Wheeler Parker Jr. And he talks about Emmett Till's abduction. So you all can check this out as well. And I was watching an interview that he did. I was watching an interview yesterday that he did some time ago also. I forgot when it was done. But this article here from Rutgers today, from Rutgers University, February 21st, 2020, last witness to Emmett Till abduction recounts his final days. This is written by Cynthia Medina. Emmett Till's cousin discussed misinformation about the murder that catalyzed the civil rights movement. Okay. And this goes through and breaks it down. He talks about Emmett Till whistling at her because he was outside of the store when Emmett Till came out. The two were together when Emmett Till whistled at Carolyn Bryant at her family's grocery store. 4 days later, Wheeler Parker Jr. said he witnessed Emmett Till's abduction at gunpoint at his great uncle's home. Fearing for his life, Wheeler Parker returned to Chicago, and soon after, Till's tortured body was found in the Tallahatchie River. Said in this interview, Till did whistle. He said some people don't want to think that he did, but he did. And when it happened, we could have all fainted. He was so afraid, and he knew he messed up. He was fun-loving and carefree, but that didn't fly in the South, and this was a very different time. Now, this is no justification for his killing, but Wheeler Parker Jr. was there, and he's telling what happened. This is still no justification for his abduction and killing, but he was there with him until he's telling what happened. Okay, so he talks about the night. The man had a pistol in one hand and a flashlight in the other. then they passed right by me, and then they passed by my cousin Curtis. He said at around 3 a.m. they took Emmett. We stayed up all night in silence. It seemed like daylight would never come. Okay, so read the rest of this here. All right. There's a picture of him, Wheeler Parker Jr., Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr. So check this out. Last witness to Emmett Till abduction recounts his final days. All right, now let's continue. I'm going to wrap this up here in a few minutes. Okay, I want to go back to the report from the Department of Justice here. We're on page 5, section 4, current FBI investigation. So the FBI also obtained and reviewed other relevant documents, conducted forensic computer analysis, and consulted with case agents familiar with the earlier investigation. The FBI quickly identified okay, this is extremely important here. The FBI quickly identified a significant obstacle in its investigation. Professor Timothy Tyson conducted 2 separate interviews with Carolyn Bryant Donham and recorded and transcribed both. However, the key statements Carolyn Bryant Donham reportedly made to him, recanting her previous testimony, were neither recorded nor transcribed. So contrary to what's in his book, contrary to what was floating around in news articles, contrary to what they say on cable news, MSNBC, CNN, the recantation of her testimony, or a portion of her 1955 testimony, that Professor Timothy Tyson alleged that Carolyn Bryant Donham made, he has no evidence in the transcriptions of the 2 audio recordings or in the 2 audio recordings. When all of this stuff floating around, the FBI went and investigated all this. They questioned witnesses. They reviewed other relevant documents. They conducted forensic computer analysis and consulted with case agents familiar with the early investigation. Okay. They identified a significant obstacle in the investigation. The key statements that Carolyn Bryant Donham reportedly made to Professor Timothy Tyson, recanting her previous testimony, were neither recorded nor transcribed. The FBI learned that Professor Timothy Tyson had lost one of the recordings. This is what he said. He lost one of the recordings, the one during which Carolyn Bryant Donham reportedly recanted her earlier statements and sworn testimony. Moreover, Professor Timothy Tyson gave inconsistent explanations of whether there had ever been a recording of the admission, and if not, why none had been made. Timothy Tyson also gave differing accounts as to when Carolyn Bryant Donham made the recantation. And Timothy Tyson told investigators, although Carolyn Bryant Donham did not specifically identify any part of her testimony as untrue, he understood from the context of their conversation that she was referring to her allegation that Emmett Till had physically accosted her in the store, and that this connection was recorded in his written notes, not in a transcription of the recording, not in the audio recording. He said it's in his written notes. So you go from smoking gun testimony, a smoking gun recantation of the testimony, to her not explicitly recanting testimony, but you inferring from the context, you understanding from the context of the conversation that she was referring to Emmett Till having physically accosted her. Okay, go into court with that and see what happens. Tyson's notes. So the FBI goes on to say, because they went and investigated all of this. They go on to say that Professor Timothy Tyson's notes, however, do not include such a connection. So he said it's in his written notes, but then they reviewed the written notes that he gave them, and they're saying his written notes don't provide any type of connection, any such connection. These facts would preclude the government from proving beyond a reasonable doubt that Carolyn Bryant Donham recanted her previous testimony when speaking with Professor Timothy Tyson, and therefore that she lied to the FBI when she denied having done so. So then they go, read the rest of this here. Then they go, a summary, section 8, a summary of the investigation. Under section 4, current FBI investigation, look at section 8, page 5, bottom of page 5, a summary of investigative steps, a summary of investigative steps. Once it was reported that Carolyn Bryant Donham had recanted to Professor Timothy Tyson, the Department of Justice took multiple steps. The Department of Justice took multiple steps to corroborate Professor Timothy Tyson's account. The FBI and the Mississippi District Attorney's Office, 4th District, conducted several interviews to include, then they go through and lay out the steps and what they did. Okay. And so read over some of these steps. I have to skip over some for the sake of time. Read over that. I want to go to the FBI, this step right here. The FBI, together with the Mississippi District Attorney's Office, 4th District, re-interviewed, I think that's Carolyn Bryant Donham, in the summer of 2018. Carolyn Bryant Donham declined to participate in the subsequent interview. Donham, who had been present during, Carolyn Bryant Donham's daughter-in-law was present during the interviews that Professor Timothy Tyson did, the 2 interviews. She was present. So I forgot her daughter-in-law's name, but Carolyn Bryant Donham, Carolyn Bryant Donham's daughter-in-law, who had been present during Professor Timothy Tyson's interviews with Carolyn Bryant, denied that Carolyn Bryant had ever recanted her earlier accounts of what happened in the store. Now, where is this here? The FBI. Okay, twice in the summer of 2018, the FBI, okay, that's not what I want. I want to go down here. This is the second one I want to go to. FBI together with I want to go to this one right here. The FBI together with the Mississippi District Attorney's Office, 4th District, interviewed Professor Timothy Tyson in the fall of 2019. This is the one I want right here. In the fall of 2019. According to Tyson, Carolyn Bryant Donham made the controversial statements at the very beginning of his first interview with her. He explained he had not yet begun recording. He explained he had not yet begun recording their conversation when she made comments, so he took notes of their conversation instead. Tyson told investigators he never thought to report Carolyn Bryant Donham's confessional quotes to law enforcement at the time because he believed the investigation was closed. He believed the investigation was closed. They can open up a new investigation if there's new evidence. They can open up a new investigation. If new evidence surfaces, they can open up a new investigation. The FBI also reviewed numerous documents, audio recordings, electronic media, some of which was obtained through, I'm not sure who that person is, and some through witness cooperation, including a single photocopied page of Timothy Tyson's handwritten notes, one audio recording of an interview with Carolyn Bryant Donham, transcripts of 2 audio recordings of interviews with Carolyn Bryant Donham made by Timothy Tyson's, a copy of Carolyn Bryant Donham's unpublished memoir, and an image of the hard drive from Timothy Tyson's laptop. A copy of Carolyn Bryant Donham's 109-page unpublished memoir that contained Timothy Tyson's editorial comments and suggestions. The contents of a 2014 unpublished paper Professor Timothy Tyson wrote referencing his interviews with Carolyn Bryant Donham that Professor Tyson's graduate student posted online, email conversations between Professor Tyson, another author, about the content of the 2014 online paper, email conversations between Tyson, and I'm not sure who this other person is, this red act, I'm not sure who that person is, email conversations between Tyson and somebody else, comments Tyson made publicly to various reporters about his interviews with Carolyn Bryant Donham. In 2017, FBI agents met with Carolyn Bryant Donham and her daughter-in-law, who had been present for Professor Timothy Tyson's interviews with Donham, with Carolyn Bryant. The FBI goes and interviews Carolyn Bryant Donham and her daughter-in-law. The purpose of the interview was to consider whether Carolyn Bryant Donham or anyone else participated or played a more significant role in Emmett Till's abduction and murder than previously found, and to determine whether Donham would admit to federal authorities what she had reportedly admitted during her interview with Professor Timothy Tyson. Okay, now, far from corroborating Timothy Tyson's account, however, Carolyn Bryant Donham adamantly denied having made the admission Professor Timothy Tyson attributed to her in his book. Moreover, she said she and her daughter-in-law together provided a very different account of their interactions with Professor Timothy Tyson than those portrayed in his book and those Tyson later shared with federal investigators. In fact, their accounts differ dramatically from Timothy Tyson's. In fact, their accounts differ dramatically from Timothy Tyson's. Now, this is on page 7. Top of page 7. Not just on what was said during the interviews, but on the nature of their relationship, their understanding of what Professor Timothy Tyson could do with a draft memoir they were working on, and their knowledge of Tyson's intention to write a book about Emmett Till. According to Carolyn Bryant Donham, I think they're referring to Carolyn Bryant Donham. According to her, nearly 10 years earlier, she and her daughter-in-law began writing a memoir, I'm More Than a Wolf Whistle is what it's called, 99-page, 109-page memoir of her life. Realizing the task of doing so was too overwhelming for the two of them, they reached out to Professor Timothy Tyson for help with writing, editing, and publishing the book. When Tyson agreed, traveled to North Carolina okay. So he traveled to North Carolina, it appears, where Carolyn Bryant Donham lived, to meet with Tyson for help with the memoir. Okay. According to Carolyn Bryant Donham, she met with Tyson on 2 occasions for a few hours, and Tyson recorded their sessions. Donham indicated that Tyson, quote, recorded everything from the moment he walked in the door. She said he recorded everything from the moment he walked in the door. Donham explained that shortly after the interviews, Professor Tyson provided her with copies of the interview transcripts to assist her in writing her memoir. Donham, however, eventually decided against publishing her memoir. Although she did not repeat to federal investigators her account of what happened inside the store in 1955, Carolyn Bryant Donham denied to investigators that she ever told Professor Timothy Tyson in either of their interviews that she had lied during her testimony. So she's telling the FBI investigators that she never recanted her testimony to Timothy Tyson. Donham also denied to investigators that, or let me see, and I think this second line here, I think that's her daughter-in-law. Also, her daughter-in-law also denied to investigators that Carolyn Bryant Donham had recanted her testimony during her conversations with Tyson, and explained to investigators that Carolyn Bryant Donham had consistently maintained over 40 years that Emmett Till had physically grabbed her in the store. Now, his family disputes that. His family says he didn't grab her in the store, or grab her at all, for that matter. All right, now, because Carolyn Bryant Donham not only failed to repeat the inculpatory admission when talking to federal authorities, but also denied ever having made such an admission. To Professor Timothy Tyson, authorities attempted to find other evidence that Carolyn Bryant Donham, in fact, had confessed to Professor Timothy Tyson that her previous accounts of the incident were false. Okay, so then they go to section C. Timothy Tyson, section C, page 7. This is the 16-page report from the Department of Justice called Emmett Till Notice to Close File. And this is their investigation based upon the allegations that Professor Timothy Tyson made in 2017 that Carolyn Bryant Donham recanted testimony or parts of her testimony during a 2008 interview that he did with her. So federal authorities contacted Professor Timothy Tyson and asked him if he would provide government officials with any information he had from his meetings with Carolyn Bryant Donham, such as notes, recordings, or any other information upon which he based his claim that she had recanted her testimony, or any other information upon which that he based his claim that she had recanted her testimony. Professor Timothy Tyson informed authorities that material from his interviews belonged to the University of North Carolina's Southern Historical Collections. The University of North Carolina's Southern Historical Collections. Southern Historical Collections. Federal investigators confirmed that the library archives received from Professor Timothy Tyson two transcribed interviews, a copy of Carolyn Bryant Donham's draft memoir, and a photograph of a legal notepad. In September 2017, the FBI obtained from the library archives and other sources one audio recording, two transcripts of two audio recordings, a single photocopied page of handwritten notes, a copy of Carolyn Bryant Donham's memoir, an edited copy of her memoir, an image of the hard drive from Professor Timothy Tyson's laptop, and various email correspondence. When we look at the audio recordings and transcripts under Section C, Timothy Tyson, number 1, audio recordings and transcripts. The FBI obtained an audio recording of Timothy Tyson's interviews with Carolyn Bryant Donham and transcriptions of both interviews. Tyson informed the FBI in an email that he could not locate the recording of his first interview with Donham, and that his then, I'm not sure what it was, lost it somehow. I think he may be saying an assistant or something lost it somehow. He indicated, however, that he thought they found it and would continue to search for it and update the FBI with the results of his search. He has never provided the FBI with the second recording. He has never provided the FBI with the second recording that he says contains the recantation. Professor Timothy Tyson did not mention or suggest in his email to the FBI that the recordings, whether available or not, were incomplete, or that they did not cover the entirety of his interview with Donham. Neither the available recording nor the transcripts include the controversial statements he attributes to Carolyn Bryant Donham. Neither the available recording nor the transcripts include the controversial statements he attributes to Donham. Moreover, case agents who had participated in previous interviews with Donham scrupulously reviewed the transcript to determine whether she made admissions inconsistent with her prior statements to federal authorities. Agents determined that while she provided some additional details of the events surrounding Emmett Till's abduction and murder that were previously unknown to federal investigators, none of Donham's recorded or transcribed statements was materially different from statements she made during interviews with the FBI during the earlier investigation. Okay, so it's saying even though she gave some additional details that she did not previously give, she did not contradict her testimony. And none suggest that she altered or recanted her previous testimony. And none of these new details led to the identification of a new living participant in Emmett Till's abduction and murder who could be prosecuted. So under Section C was Section 4, subsection C, number 2, Timothy Tyson's handwritten notes. Timothy Tyson's handwritten notes. The undated handwritten notes that Professor Timothy Tyson provided to the FBI do not include a full quotation of the alleged recantation that Timothy Tyson described in his book. Do not include a full quotation of the alleged recantation that Tyson described in his book. The notes include only 4 statements without context as to what subject had been under discussion when the statements were made or what questions had led to the statement. The notes state in full as follows. So he has a name. I guess that name would be Carolyn Bryant Donham. Then he has the quote, "That part wasn't true." Then it says, 50 years ago, I just don't remember. Then it says, nothing that boy ever did could justify what happened to him. These are from his notes. Professor Tyson did not provide any accompanying information to identify the context in which Donham allegedly made these statements, nor did he provide any additional notes of his interviews with Donham. Rather, he represented that he did not believe he took any additional notes of their conversations. There's also nothing in the recording transcripts that obviously correlates to these statements to provide any additional context. And instead, the recording transcripts raise additional questions about what Carolyn Bryant Donham said and when she said it. Then they go to section 3. Interview of Tyson and review of additional information. This is page 8. The recording transcripts of Professor Timothy Tyson's interview with Donham do not include a recantation or provide context to Professor Timothy Tyson's sparse handwritten notes, and the notes themselves do not corroborate Tyson's assertion that Carolyn Bryant Donham recanted her testimony. For that reason, the FBI and the Mississippi District Attorney's Office, 4th District, reviewed additional information uncovered during the investigation and interviewed Professor Tyson to ask him directly about the nature and context of the statements he attributed to Carolyn Bryant Donham. When the FBI does an investigation, they go through all those leads, all that stuff floating around in the minute. They go through and they methodically go through and investigate each one of those leads and view witnesses, review documents, all of that stuff. But rather than obtaining other corroborating evidence to support Timothy Tyson's claim that Carolyn Bryant Donham offered a recantation, investigators instead identified. Now, this is an important point here. This is why I'm going over this. This is page 8, section 3. Investigators instead identified numerous inconsistencies with Professor Timothy Tyson's account that raised questions about the credibility of his account of the interviews. So they keep getting deeper and deeper in this, and they keep seeing all these inconsistencies. For example, it is undisputed that Professor Timothy Tyson interviewed Carolyn Bryant Donham twice but there is confusion about the purpose of the interviews and when they occurred, when the key statements were made, and in what context were these key statements made, and why those key statements were not memorialized. Moreover, inconsistencies between Professor Timothy Tyson's account and documentary evidence would prevent the Department of Justice from relying upon Tyson's uncorroborated account. So they're saying he's not a reliable witness. Okay, so then they go through and talk about confusion over the purpose of the interviews and when and in what context Carolyn Bryant Donham made the alleged recantation. You go through, read the rest of that. But those were the salient points I wanted to get to here in this broadcast, looking at a different section of the report. Read this full report, 16 pages. Came out December 6, 2021. Emmett Till notice to close file. As I said in our as I said on the July 10th, our July 10th edition of our Sunday show, the African History Network show, as I said then, if the feds took Carolyn Bryant Donham to court, if they were going to prosecute, and they put Professor Timothy Tyson on the witness stand, if her defense attorneys would destroy him on cross-examination after he testifies, because his story keeps changing. You said she recanted her testimony. You don't have an audio recording of it. You said you recorded the 2 interviews. You don't have the audio recording of the recantation. You lost the second audio recording. The 2 transcripts of the audio recordings don't contain the recantation. Your notes are unreliable. And they said his notes don't contain a recantation. The context of his notes are not clear. Hopefully there will be justice for Emmett Till, but it's not going to be with this evidence right here. So go through, read these articles that I shared with you. We deal with facts and evidence as much as possible here. Okay. And like I said before, as Denzel Washington told Ethan Hawke in the movie Training Day, it's not what you believe, it's what you can prove. It's not what you believe, it's what you can prove. All right. Then the broadcast we did July 10th, that edited broadcast, because I went through and edited just this section. We'll provide that in the link here of the broadcast as well. And I shared that yesterday also, but it's on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep as well, IMHOTEP. Be sure to register for the online history classes I teach on Saturdays and Sunday. You see, I'm like pretty thorough with my information when it comes to history. The information, period. But if you network show, you'll know this. On Saturdays and Sundays, I teach history classes. On Saturdays, it is ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic. So our next class is Saturday, August 13th, 2022. August 13th, 2022, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So that class is on sale, $60, regularly $140. And it takes a lot to do these classes. And I also have to pay for the 2 digital platforms that we teach the classes on. But it's a ton of information in it. You're going to learn a lot. And then on Sundays, we teach from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Okay. And in that class, we deal with history And we start in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase, and we deal with history that leads up to the Civil War, and goes. We do a Reconstruction, 1865, 1877. We deal with the so we do a Reconstruction, Jim Crow era, World War I, World War II, Great Migration, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. The second class, the one we teach on Sundays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. That class is on sale, $60 as well. And we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. First class we do on Saturdays. That should be Saturday. The next class is going to be Saturday, August 13th. Okay, Saturday, August 13th. Not Thursday. We have a bundle pack when you can register for both classes for $100. So that's over $300 value, because they're going to be there's some bonus lectures that you'll get from me in digital format as well. So if you've taken any of my online classes in the past, email us at ahnshow@africanhistorynetwork.com. You get a 50% discount on the classes. We have this information at our website, africanhistorynetwork.com, africanhistorynetwork.com, and our new website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. So in the Saturday class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. There were thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. And we do a timeline of history. There's book references or articles. There's over 50 articles that I reference. We have video clips, all that information. And we also deal with the African presence in the Americas going back at least 51,700 years ago as well. Okay, so we have the information here in the thread of the broadcast. You can register for the class. As soon as you register, there's bonus content that you can watch the previous classes, and there's content that you can start watching also. And you can watch from around the world. Even after the class is over with, a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire course. Okay. And we have information for the bundle pack there. You can register for both classes. That's there as well. If you can use this information with your children also. With the classes, I would say the content is PG-13. So it's not vulgar. It's not, I don't do a lot of cursing, things like this. So you can use this with our youth. You can use this with our children also. And you can also support the African History Network if you like this type of information. It takes a lot of work and takes finances to be able to do all this type of research and do the broadcast. You can support us, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. So we have the information also on the homepage of our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. This is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN Show. When you go to it, it says Michael and it shows my picture there. These other ones here are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. I'm still trying to get shut down. They've been stealing money from us. So we're still trying to get them shut down. Okay, so hopefully you learned a lot from this broadcast, and you can go through, read these articles, read the full report from the Department of Justice as well. As I said before, hopefully there will be justice somehow for Emmett Till. It's not going to be with the information from Professor Timothy Tyson, however. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.
The work that I do is larger than the fashion industry. It's larger than the art world. And I believe that I was born to bring newness into this world. I'm Kaima McIntyre. I'm 24 years old and I'm an artist. I create everything from paintings to jewelry design, metaphysical jewelry to be specific, and fashion design. The only reason why my prom dress went viral is because people needed it. Within a few days of going viral, Notori Naughton reached out to me and she's like, I saw your dress, can you make me a dress? I was equally as shocked to be asked by a celebrity to design their dress at the age of 17. That's just one person, and the list just continues to go on, to Janet Jackson, to Tyra Banks. It really hits home. That means that the discussion is happening on the grounds in real time.
iRedify is a Black-owned digital platform that showcases Black and Brown cultures and people. The books on the platform are written by African-American authors, Afro-Caribbean authors, African authors, and so much more. Kids 14 and under can read ebooks, listen to audiobooks, and complete learning activities. Kids can even write in the books digitally. Get unlimited access to everything on the platform for only $8.99 a month at iRedify.com. Sign up for your membership today. Hotep, everybody. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. And I want to give a special shout out to everybody who has attended the 11th annual Liberated Minds Black Homeschooling Education Expo. I just want to take a few minutes, and we had a great presentation that I did on Saturday. So I teach 2 online history classes. One on Saturday and one on Sunday. On Saturday, the class that I teach, normally 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And this is normally a 10-week online class. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We can't start studying our history in slavery. Even when we study the transatlantic slave trade, which is important to study, we can't start in 1619 or in the 1440s with the Portuguese, when the Portuguese get involved in the transatlantic slave trade. We have to understand the history chronologically and deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who entered into the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal, from North Africa in 711 AD. When we discuss the transatlantic slave trade, we have to first understand that African people are the original people of North, Central, and South America, and have been in the land we call the United States at least 51,700 years. Now, the second class I teach is on Sundays, normally 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Now, these classes are normally $130. They're on sale right now, $60. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, so you can go back and watch it anytime. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire class. With both of these classes, I would say the content is PG-13, so you can use this with your children as well if you want to. Also, you can advertise with the African History Network. We have 3 new advertising packages. Our current promotion is buy 1 month to get 1 month free. We have 1 million followers at our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. And with our platinum package, we'll take out ads on our Facebook fan page for you as well to help maximize your advertising campaign. And we take your 30-second to 60-second commercial, we put into the rebroadcast of our shows, and also into the audio podcast of our shows as well. We only have 20 advertising slots because we have a finite amount of advertising space. Email us at ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, or call us 313-462-0003. All right, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever.